Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Jefferson Highway Show. This historic highway was formed in 1915 by the Jefferson Highway Association. It runs from Winnipeg, Canada, all the way to New Orleans, Louisiana. Let's go! Welcome, everyone. So excited about today's Jefferson Highway podcast because we're going to do a follow-up of last month's Military Vehicle Preservation Association's incredible convoy on the highway. They started on October 1st and went through the 31st and did the entire run from Minnesota to Louisiana, not Winnipeg. So I've got to remind everyone, like it goes from Winnipeg to New Orleans. Or New Orleans to Winnipeg, whichever way you want to go. But I was obviously taking all these historic military vehicles. They started in Minnesota and went all the way through. We did a podcast in July, obviously with Roger Bell, the president here of the Jefferson Highway Association. Roger was on the show, as well as Convoy organizer Chuck Toney and John Varner. And today we have a couple of new guests on the show. We've got Dan McCluske joining us. He is the convoy commander. So do you have a CB radio, Dan? Welcome to the show. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Do you have a CB radio? Like, did you guys do that? Like, we've got us a convoy. Did you do that? That's so important to know.
Oh, yes. We have complete convoy communications, although we're using the business radio bands rather than citizens band. So all of our members have radios in their vehicles, and I'm on the radio all day giving turn-by-turn instructions and also highlighting some of the wonderful sights that we're seeing along that route.
Wow. This is exciting. We've also have Adeline Whisenhunt. Did I get it right, Adeline?
Yes.
Adeline. I'm like, her and I had a language discussion, and then I thought I had it all down, and then I went, uh-oh. Now,
you got it.
Adeline is the Southern District Board for the Oklahoma chapter. She is the director of the Southern District for Oklahoma on there's an actual state chapter of the Jefferson Highway, which I think of the association, which is amazing. So she's a director of that, and she also helped plan the convoy in her district. So welcome, Adeline. Tell everybody about the area where that southern portion is for everyone to kind of look at on a map.
So if you're looking at Oklahoma, the Jefferson Highway enters in kind of right there where Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, and Arkansas kind of come to a nice little corner. It comes in from Missouri and then follows U.S. Highway 69, U.S. Highway 69 was basically planted on top of the Jefferson Highway back in the 30s. So it follows all the way down until it crosses the Red River between Colbert, Oklahoma, and Denison, Texas. And so my district is right over pretty much my entire personal history with Oklahoma. So I currently reside in McAllister in my northern county of my district. So that's Pittsburgh County. So if you go from Lake Eufaula all the way to the Red River, that you will drive through Pittsburgh County, Atoka County, and Bryan County, with the major cities being McAllister, Oklahoma, and Pittsburgh County, Atoka in Atoka County, and Durant, Oklahoma, in Bryan County. My dad and his family are from Durant, Oklahoma. We moved back there when I was a preteen after he retired from the Navy, and so I grew up there and then went to college there. So I've pretty much have just ping-ponged around this part of the Jefferson Highway, and it wasn't until this last year that I actually learned about the Jefferson Highway and became more involved.
I love this, and I love that you're a Jefferson Highway baby, right? So this is so cool. And Nancy and I have traveled through your area and Lake Eufaula, and it's beautiful out there. And we've been through a lot of parts of Oklahoma. We did get to meet Roger, who's on the show as always. Roger, how are you?
I'm good. This is a quite a podcast to look back on this really historic event. I mean, this is uh, to me, this was I saw a lot of things in the past history in motion that the group was uh, promoting during their drive, but it truly was an historic event along the Jefferson Highway. I don't know of any other convoy group like this to travel the highway together like this in basically 100 years.
Yeah.
So, near to it. So, it was really exciting for us, and I was privileged to be involved with it for a couple of days and meet these great folks and welcome to my hometown in Muskogee, Oklahoma. But we followed them day by day around the route, and it was quite an event. And I can't say enough about the group and Dan, who's on here. I got to meet him, and it's just been quite a pleasure. We have got a ton of new members. We have our Facebook and all our social media grew exponentially during this time just because people were finding out about the convoy.
Mm-hmm.
There's one post I did on Facebook. I have no idea why it was a video, and it's in Adeline's district in Stringtown, Oklahoma, that I did of the convoy coming into Stringtown. I have no idea, but the analytics are showing about 100 or 150,000 people reach on that one post. So
wow, it's amazing because this is an epic event, and you talk about Atoka. Y'all, this is important. Reba McEntire did a shout out and created her own day for military vehicles.
Yeah, that happened in Stringtown, and we were there to see that.
They previewed that video inside the gymnasium in Stringtown?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Just outside there. Yeah.
That is amazing. So I want to go to Dan. Dan, so you're the commander. So like you are like the head of it all, like
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, Dan, Dan. I mean, you're not allowed to have any anxiety over this, are you? If you're the commander, you're the commander in chief of the convoy.
Yep, it's all on my shoulders. I'm running the convoy from dawn till dusk. I've got a great crew that helps me out during the convoy. We have a recovery crew. That's our last March unit that picks up all the broken pieces. We have a support group that has a lot of our extra vehicles that are traveling along on the convoy. And then we have our advance Bob, who heads out, him and his brother Tom. They're our advance group, and they leave usually a half hour, 45 minutes before we do, and get into our next location. And their job is to park 35, including support, it's about 45 vehicles in a lot of places that are way too small to fit 45 vehicles. And they've done an amazing job on this whole convoy, getting us parked and in position to display vehicles. So it makes my job a whole lot easier. I just have to focus on making sure we don't make that wrong turn. Which usually I end up making one wrong turn on every convoy, and we kind of celebrate it as making our own pass-by, our own drive-through, where we get to pass and review our own convoy as we get turned around heading back the correct way. So usually it happens at least once out of the 25 to 35,000 or 3,500 miles that we do on these convoys.
But this is incredible, and when you think about going from Minnesota all the way to New Orleans, I mean, you did like the whole middle route of our country. You went through the heartland, pine to palm, palm to pine, the original vacation route of America. I mean, this is pretty epic, and there's so much military history along the way. And I love when you're talking about, people call it detours. We call it farming, because often my car goes off into places it shouldn't. That because we drive the country full time. We call it farming, but it happens all the time, and it's funny. But you talk about getting the vehicles into place for show because I know you went to Natchitoches, Louisiana, and you ended up being part of like a car show, and I think their university got involved, right? So this was like you weren't just driving through, you actually had engagements in all the communities that you stayed in, right? And even stopped in different places, to be part of the military history in those communities, right?
Yeah, and we also stopped at it was around 5 veterans homes. We did either drive-bys or there was a couple where we actually had time to stop and engage with the local veterans and at the retirement homes. And that's another one of our goals on these convoys is to engage as many veterans homes as we can along our route. So there's a lot of things like that where we do engage the public. We were part of a homecoming parade in, like you said, in Natchitoches. We had some vehicles in that. We did another one. I think we did 3 parades on the convoy that we were part of.
Pittsburgh, Kansas, I believe, was one of them.
Yep, in Pittsburgh. Yep.
Wow. Wow. So you're doing all these parades and, you're being part of it all. But then did you go to, you were talking about going to the retirement homes for veterans. What about the American Legions and those kinds of organizations? Because I've also heard like that some legions, depending on where they are in the country, are really hoping to stay open and have members still be part of them. Can you talk about that a little bit in your experience on the route with this convoy?
Well, this was probably the largest amount of engagement we've had so far with American Legions and VFW halls. We normally have 10 to 12 dinners on our own along the route in the 28 days. I think we had 3 on this one. We were able to engage a lot of American Legion halls to do either breakfast, lunch, or dinner for us. VFWs doing dinners for us. We must have gone to 50 or 60 veterans lodges on this trip. It's the largest engagement we've ever had out of all of our 8 different convoys that we've done.
Wow, that is fantastic to hear. So, Roger, as we put the Jefferson Highway travel guide together, I think we have to have a section on military history and then and now, right? What do you think?
Well, they touched a lot of military history. I know Dan can tell you. I mean, they went to the iconic places. I mean, going to the World War I museum, obviously the World War II museum, but they touched a lot of other military history along the route. Obviously, Louisiana maneuvers and area which about near Pineville, Louisiana, and then they kind of got out, and we talked about this, as we always talk about this on our podcast. Is the route is not always just on the route itself, but they went off to Fort Leavenworth and some of the historic places. So they touched military history all the way down. And as I was thinking about their trip most of the time, it was just kind of a reminder of how much military history is on this route. And most people wouldn't think that in the middle of America, but it is.
Oh, and if I can speak on that for a moment, McCluske was a big kind of, I guess, picture of that, because in current day we have a Army ammunition plant here in McCluske. And but one of the things that I did, because I volunteer with our local historical society, was the moment we found out that Lieutenant Dan and his crew were coming through our community, it was in the spring. I was booking presentations at our VFW hall, at our DAV, at our American Legion, and all these different groups in our area. And I was like, hey, it's happening in October. I don't know what day that they're going to be coming through yet. But I want you to know this is what's going to be going on, and I don't want y'all to hear about it the next day in the newspaper. I want y'all to know that it's coming through and getting excited. And so, um, thanks to Lieutenant Dan and all of this, I now call bingo on Friday nights at the local VFW hall.
Oh, very good.
One of the
Very
things that
good.
this kind of developed into was we debuted the Historical Society, and a PhD student out of UNT debuted a banner that we made about the local military history here because McCluske had a German POW camp here during World War II. And so
Wow.
he had that debuted outside the venue that we were serving lunch at for the convoy. And because there's not a lot of physical remains of the camp anymore here in town, but we have quite a few artifacts, and so we displayed that in a safe way without having to have the artifacts outside and stuff like that. So that was something
cool.
that I was really excited to do. We weren't sure if we were going to get to have it ready because it was requested for Oktoberfest, which was the following weekend. And we were able to get it done well in time for Lieutenant Dan and his convoy members to get to see. And that was really
I love this because, when you think about it, even when you think about POW camps, and we've been through some on the tour as we travel the country, and, there's really depending on where you go, there's not that much to see. Sometimes it's a plaque in a field, or sometimes it's like a high school field, or even like I don't know, like a sports. All I know is it's just not what you think,
There's concrete walls in my grandmother's pasture in north of Paris, Texas.
No way.
Another one but like you would have to trespass to go see it. To my grandma's pasture.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to go trespassing with you.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like this is forgotten history too. Whenever you think of POW camps, you always think overseas first, and and I'm talking about as not civilians history maybe, and history buffs know better, right? But when you get into it, you start to realize, wow, it was such fascinating history, and so to connect with that, Dan, can you tell us a little bit about that part for you guys going through and seeing and being connected to the POW camps? I mean, that's pretty cool to be able to touch on that because it's amazing what went down in these POW camps. I mean, some of them ended up being farmers. Some of them were painting paintings, depending, if they were from Italy or Germany or whatever.
We had some of those in ours, and we had a picture of a few of them on the banner itself. And wood carvings and all of that. They got to travel up and down the Jefferson Highway going to these farms. And a lot of it was very eye-opening because they were being fed, the Germans themselves from within the German army were being fed propaganda about who was actually winning the war. And so when they got over here and America wasn't being bombed on both sides, they were like, wait, what? So, and we had letters and stuff that were confiscated and made copies of as they were being sent out about them telling their families that this is the best I've eaten in years. And so it's a really interesting banner that we were able to display.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Hey, enthusiasm is welcome.
You mentioned paintings, and I was like, we have those.
I want to come see them. Okay. Dan, tell us about the experience for you guys. I mean, just the convoy. How many people were on the convoy? Like how many cars, vehicles, not cars?
Yeah. Well, our maximum number was 35. Most of the days we were running around 30, 28 to 30 military vehicles. And that constituted about 60 to 80 people, depending on which day, because we had vehicles that would join us for 2 weeks and then leave the convoy, and so it usually changed every couple of days as to how many vehicles we had.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, because I know I know this sounds, it's different. It's like kind of if you're some people hike the Appalachian Trail and do bit by bit by bit by bit. And some people just go, I'm going through the whole thing. And then you have like a crazy lady running through with eating gummies and winning. Like I ran across the Appalachian Trail the fastest. I'm like,
one
it's
of the
true.
things that I, was amazed at is, how organized they were. I mean, these vehicles, I mean, they need, they're big. They need attention. I don't even know how they handle the fuel situation, but um, I know there was a couple instances where they had somebody that had to drive way off to get some of the parts. You might tell us a little bit about that, Dan.
Yeah, we had an amazing recovery group, and we had a couple of vehicles that were having fuel issues with parts of their vehicles that had aged out. Plastics are a good example. And we had one of our fellows from Kansas, from Liberal, Kansas, and for about 3 days, he was gone most every day looking for parts to get this military bus back on the road again. It would run for the day, but as soon as you shut it off, it wouldn't start. You'd have to, because it was leaking air. So he was able to find the parts for that to get that fixed. We have quite a network of collectors that we reach out to during these convoys when we've got these kinds of issues. And we really only lost one. We lost one Jeep, an M151 at the beginning, up in Minnesota because of carburetor issues. And then my truck, my deuce and a half, I got halfway through the convoy and my transmission let out on me. And then we had one other truck that didn't even make it to Kansas City on the way up to the beginning of the convoy, and he blew the engine in his Cut V pickup, our Advanced Bob. So as another example of how we take care of our own, we got to Kansas City and Advanced Bob and two of our other folks from our recovery unit, while we were at the World War I Museum, they drove to Kentucky, picked up the broken down truck and brought it back to us that evening. And then we hauled it the rest of the way down to New Orleans because Bob lives in Florida. And then one of our deuce and a halves towed it from New Orleans to Florida.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were able to get that truck with a blown engine all the way back to his house as part of our convoy duties. Yeah.
So it's like being back in the military again, where it is one team and everybody, no one goes down. You know what I mean?
No one gets left behind. That's it.
That's amazing. Yep. It's amazing.
Yep.
So when you talk about, I mean, because these are historic military vehicles. When you look at the age of the vehicles, can you give us a time frame of when these vehicles were in operation in their prime time?
Yeah, we have all the way from World War II. We had Jeeps on the trip, World War II Jeeps. We had 3/4 ton Dodge, what a lot of people call power wagons from World War II, and then we had Vietnam era Dodge trucks again. And then all the way up to modern military, some of our 5 tons, they were all released from the military back around in the late 90s, early 2000s. So we pretty much cover the gamut of all of the ages of the military vehicles that are currently being used and have been used all the way from World War II.
Wow, that is incredible. And so how far would you go each day in general? Because you can't like go 70 miles an hour.
No, we're traveling at 35 miles an hour. Wow. Our longest day, we had a couple of 168-mile days, and those are long. We're on the road at 8 a.m. and we take a morning break, sometimes 2 morning breaks, lunch break, and then an afternoon break. And some of them we were getting in at 4 to 5 o'clock, and this late in the year, that's getting pretty close to dark. And so we try and get everybody off the road before dark. So that was, and then there were some days that were 35 miles. You know, there were some nice easy days a couple of times, but most of them average around 100 to 125 miles a day.
Now, did you have ice cream in Minnesota? I'm sorry, that was just. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In my travel with them for 2 days, basically, traveling down the road is just with them. Part of the time I was toward the end, part of the time I was actually in the middle. But it was just amazing to see the different reactions of people on the route. Some people had no idea what's going on, but they just, they just stop. They just know that they just sense this is something important. And I remember going past one of the schools. I want to say it was near Veneta, Oklahoma. All the school kids were out.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing some of the video that your group had. One of the communities that I've been to before was in Monaga, Minnesota. This is a small community just south of Park Rapids, Minnesota. And it looked like the whole town must have been out because that's not a very big town. And the school kids were there, and it was just. I know you made several special efforts to go through some of these schools along the route.
Yeah, one day we did 3 schools. We did drive-bys, and the whole schools turns out, and
Awesome.
they get so fired up. We'll get the kids. They'll make their own flags ahead of time. They know we're coming, and they're out there waving these flags and banners that they've made themselves.
Wow.
It's just really heartwarming to see the reaction. Another one is a lot of just the homes along the route
Yeah.
where people know that they're on the Jefferson Highway and they've heard about us coming. And we'll have people out at the end of their driveways in their vehicles waiting for us to come by, waving
That's right.
flags at us. And we're 10 miles, 15 miles out of town, out in the middle of nowhere. And we've got people out at the end of their driveways waving at us. It's just
I went
amazing.
ahead of you. I went ahead of you on part of it because I was coming back to my hometown of Muskogee, getting ready for our events, and I happened to go through Pryor, Oklahoma, and on the side of the road, I saw a gentleman with a veteran's hat on, in a wheelchair, and another woman,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought these people are waiting for the convoy, and it's not
They
going to
are.
be here. There's not going to be here for an hour. So I stopped and I said, "You're waiting for the convoy, aren't you?" Yes, we've just been waiting all day for this convoy here. I mean, it just shows you,
Oh,
the respect they have for these
Mm-hmm.
guys, and and also the respect, patriotism, I think, for the country. So everywhere we went, I saw it. We did when you got to Muskogee, we organized an event where we had a kind of a parade, but we had a cars. We had. And I didn't know if it would ever get off the ground, but I think because of what this was and because of respect, I had people down from Tulsa. We were trying to get one vehicle from every decade in time.
Oh, jeez.
And we didn't really know we'd get it. And all of a sudden, we had people from Tulsa and all over the area wanting to be part of it. In fact, I had to almost turn people down because we didn't want a
wow.
50 vehicle convoy before they came in. And it was really amazing. And of course, I have a 1960s, I have a 66 Mustang. I drove in that. And just to see the people along my hometown, wondering what was going on with that. And then afterwards, it was authentic. It was just authentic patriotism, and I think to experience it firsthand like that was really special.
Yeah. Well, and another one that a lot of people may not realize is the support that we get from the police departments.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
there were towns, that had 1,500 people in there. They have one officer, and they pulled out the fire department. They pulled out the parks
Wow.
department, and they were blocking intersections for us. It was like they pulled all of the city employees out to block intersections for us, so we could make the run through town. And
Yeah.
it was all we had to do was ask. And they were just
Right.
more than happy. Kansas City's a good example. I mean, they gave us a full escort right into downtown
Wow.
Kansas
Wow.
City,
Wow.
to the World War
Wow.
One museum. I mean, it was fantastic. The response that we got from local police, and even there was one spot where they had a fire engine out with what was it, that 60 by 80-foot flag hanging from the
Mm-hmm.
ladder of the snorkel truck,
I think
the fire
That
department.
was in
that was here
McAllister.
in McAllister.
Yep. Yep.
I have a photo of our mayor a month before his term as mayor was expiring, helping with the firemen and the city managers fold up that flag after y'all left.
Oh,
Wow.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's
But
great.
yeah, no, that was my main, aside from just spreading the word in advance, that was kind of my main contribution to getting y'all through these communities in my district was arranging the police escorts
Mm-hmm.
because when y'all were first releasing your stops, y'all were scheduled to leave Atoka and then stop in Armstrong and then stop for lunch in Denison. And
Mhm.
because I grew up there, it's right outside Durant. I was like, there's no place for y'all to stop in Armstrong. Why? And I reached out to Chuck and I was like,
Yep.
y'all really should stop in Caddo. There's a mural for the Jefferson Highway right on the intersection, right on a downtown building.
Yep.
I
Yep.
was I went to the Caddo's Heritage Day about 3 weeks before y'all came, 2 or 3 weeks. It was in October. So a few
Uh-huh.
days after y'all got started, right, a couple weeks before y'all were coming through and stopping in Caddo. And we had a couple community members from around Caddo that had 1920s era vehicles that they were driving in their thing, and my husband and his parents are from Caddo, and I was like, who are those people and can I have their numbers? And those were the guys that we had two
You go,
original
girl.
Jefferson Highway era vehicles parked in front of that mural as a photo op for the convoy. Uh,
Yep.
That's cool.
and then Dan surprised me because I was gonna go in advance from Caddo, stop to about 15 minutes down the road to the Durant stop. And he is like, you're riding with the advance team. Go meet this guy. And I get there and it's, what was it, a 1945 Packard US
Yep.
Navy staff car?
Yep.
Sweet.
That's what it
And
was.
I was just like, I
Dude.
just won. That
But
was the coolest thing, riding through where I grew up and talking to that lovely gentleman. I
Mhm.
did not catch his name.
Yeah,
well,
that's Roger.
Roger,
Another
yeah. It
Roger.
was it was such a great time. And then I rolled into the Durant stop. My dad was already there. He's with the VFW in Durant, and because I'm a Navy brat. And so riding in with that Navy staff car, 1945 Packard in with the advance team to figure out where they were actually parking at the Durant
Yep.
stop was the coolest experience ever. So thank you,
Very
Dan.
good. Yep. Glad
well,
that we could do that.
I think this is something really important to talk about is like how communities rally together to make something very epic happen. And not only is it just within their community, but like it's uniting the entire highway together, all the
Yes.
communities, because, this convoy is going through everywhere, right? So this is what's so epic about it. And I think, Adeline, with what you were doing, you just got on board. Like this is not like a paid position. You guys, the Jefferson
Yeah.
Highway is like a
Well,
nonprofit volunteer group, right?
If I could
And
make
I
running
want people to
logistics
know
like this
that.
paid, I would do it in the blink of an eye. That was probably the best I've had all
I see
year.
where she's like in, but,
mhm.
for people getting in, I wanted to go with this with Adeline because I want people to understand about when things like this happen to your community to get up,
Yeah.
show up and
I
do it,
I was
right?
reaching out because I represent all three. I represent Pittsburgh County, Atoka County, and Bryan County. Those are the three counties along 69 from the northern border to the southern border of the Choctaw Nation, the independent
Mm-hmm.
Native American tribe of the Choctaws, their nation. So not only was I getting making sure we had McAllister PD, that we had Caddo PD, that we had Durant PD, that Atoka's PD, that the various county sheriffs were involved. I got Oklahoma Highway Patrol there for both days that they were traveling through my district. But one of the main things that was really important to me was that the convoy had that awareness, but also everybody that was watching them travel through had that awareness of you are in the Choctaw Nation. And I wasn't sure if I'd get it pulled off, but they were all on board. The Choctaw Light Horse policemen are not a very strong force, and they cover the entire southeast Oklahoma. They're growing their numbers, but kind of think highway patrol numbers
Mm-hmm.
in the rural areas. And I was able to have at least one unit with them from the moment they entered Choctaw Nation in the morning of the 17th until they stopped at the Oklahoma as they crossed the bridge across the Red River at the bottom of Oklahoma. As they went
Wow.
into Texas, them and the highway patrol pulled off
Wow.
and waved by. And it's like the Choctaw Nation had presence. They had a one of their council members that represents the Pittsburgh County area speak at the McCluske stop, and then there was a Choctaw cultural display from their cultural center at the Durant stop. But I wanted to make sure they have really cool trucks that have pictures of their light horse officers from the late 1800s, early 1900s. So these Choctaw cowboys on horseback with their rifles are screen printed on the side of the light horse police vehicles. And that was as I was like, how do we need to make this happen safely, but also as a representation of who we are? And I was really excited that I was able to get that pulled off. And then like the day of, Lieutenant Dan probably remembers all getting all the texts from me. I was like, okay, so at this time, here's the guy that's picking you up as you cross the bridge into Pittsburgh County. And then I was spreading everybody's numbers across the different agencies that I got doing escorts, sharing each of their numbers with each other so they all knew who was doing what and who they needed to talk to if they had questions.
Dang, how did you guys even drive? I mean, she's messaging you every 5 seconds.
I am so good at multitasking. There have been convoys where I was doing a live remote radio broadcast while I was leading the convoy. And
Wow.
so I would have to ask the moderator, hold on 1 second, and then I would give my next turn commands and then go back to the radio program. So I'm tracking our progress on the maps. I'm usually answering texts or conversation, phone messages all along the way. So yeah, it's it's a lot of fun.
And Lieutenant Dan and I had a powwow on the hood of his car before he left the McCluske stop, planning, because I caught up with him and I was like, okay, y'all are stopping in Caddo and Durant tomorrow. And he was like, I think so. And then sure enough, you had it written down on your thing. And my friend took a really good picture of you and I looking at your map on the hood of your car that day.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
I was running around at all the stops going, okay, who do I need to talk to make sure they know what's happening next before they hit the road?
We did have some really good media attention. Dan was on the radio, but I remembered, I know here in Muskogee, I know we had Tulsa News here, and they stayed quite a bit. And then there was several other times where I saw along the route, there was some good media attention and coverage, whether it be newspaper or TV reporting going on. So I've seen quite a bit of that. We posted some of that on our page. We talked to I did not know that Adeline got picked up and got to ride in the car. Now I'm jealous. Another really cool one was this, Lisa, our young friend Ruby Burr from she got to be picked up in the morning, and
Awesome.
The feedback I got is that was like one of the best days of her life. She was
she's amazing. She got the Jefferson Highway sign at her school. I mean, this is incredible. She's an amazing.
Well, she got 2 more up now, and right in there downtown, and today I spoke to some people in that community. She's got them all fired up in that small community, and so it's just really fun to see things like that. It's just it really was. So it's just kind of one of the things, and we gained a lot of attention. One of the things again is signage we didn't talk about. We did the first day of the trip in Minnesota. Some friends that have really discovered us recently in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. They dedicated the first sign ever for the Jefferson Highway, one of our signs in their community, and right off the bat. And then I'm probably forgetting some, but we dedicated signs in Chakota, Oklahoma, and I want to say there was one in Natchitoches that got done. And
yes, they did. They did. They did a new sign.
There were several along the route, and then the even cooler thing, I think, is all of a sudden we had people doing route signage. I mean, Denison, Texas is a pretty good sized community, and they pushed through efforts right about a month before the convoy got there to completely sign the route through Denison, Texas now. So, and Joplin, Missouri, another one, they put some new signage up in Olathe, Kansas, I believe, is another one. So
this is epic. So basically, this convoy put a little hot poker out there.
I 100% agree. That's
we
my
had
point.
a sign from probably the original route that had disappeared 70 years, 50 plus years ago. Just walk up after, while the convoy was in McAllister, some guy knew they were coming in, came and heard all of the talks, and then walked up to us as the convoy was going into the building for lunch and was just like, so have y'all guys seen this? And we're like,
yeah, he walked up to me,
wow.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, it just comes out of the woodwork.
Well, I want to go to Dan. Doing this, we're hearing all the stories like from Roger and Adeline too, and you. I mean, for everyone to get together with this convoy, because I know this was over a year or so to put together.
2 years.
And you're trying to track every road and understand, like, I remember calling Roger up going, how are they going to do New Orleans? We just escaped a hurricane in New Orleans. How the heck? What? There's potholes in this road, that road. How is this convoy? He's like, well, no, they're not doing this, Lisa. Cause I'm like, I suddenly like, Roger, they can't do this. He's like, they're not. Because, so, I mean, there's the attention to detail has to be like precise as best as possible. And then you all go farming, as I call it. But,
well, obviously, John and Chuck, who were on our previous podcast, they did a lot of that. Driving the route and planning it for sure.
Yeah, I want everyone to know the link to the previous episode is in the episode notes here, so you can hear Chuck and John. But Dan, everyone getting together to make this epic thing happen. It's a lot of it. This is again not a paid gig. This is a lot of sweat equity, time, and there's joy that comes out of it from what I'm hearing from everybody that's experienced it so far. There's a lot of joy and community pride and pride in veterans and those who are past, those who have served in history. So is that like the vehicle part is, I know that's fun to work on, historic vehicles. I don't care if it's, an Oldsmobile or Pontiac or a Cadillac, just saying, all the way to the MASH, hospital truck. But this is something that is pretty epic. And that's why I'm so glad you are on the show and Adeline today, because, Roger and I were talking about that. It's like, when is this going to happen again? We need to do this now. This follow-up conversation, we did we want to do the follow-up because this is so much work that goes into it, but the joy of it, I mean, did you guys get all giddy? I mean, everyone goes into it for a reason. What do you want to tell us a little bit about that part?
Yeah, it's really rewarding, especially when we get new people on the convoy that have never been on one before. And it takes about 2 to 3 days, and you couldn't pull them out of the convoy with a stick of dynamite. I mean, they experience things that you never experience in regular life. The convoy thing, the driving like the Army did, that's all nice and cool. But it's all of the interaction interaction with the public, with the veterans. We get veterans coming up, and they're showing us pictures of them in front of their vehicle, and we get those stories. And it is so rewarding to be able to engage all of our veterans, even though a lot of us aren't veterans. About 30% of our convoyers are veterans. The rest are enthusiasts. We restore and collect these vehicles, but we know the importance of them. And that's what really, really brings it out. The joy that we see in the kids when we go past the schools. You just can't put a number on that. And then visiting the veterans' homes, that's the rewarding part of it. And it's hard to wipe that grin off our face when we get done at the end of the day. So many experiences that we've been able to have that most people never get to have.
Yeah, no, I think it's magic. And I think you brought an entire community of the Jefferson Highway itself together. And to also understand, community is everything. And I think you're bringing civilians out too. And there's often a gap between military and civilians. And that's important that we bridge that gap. And I think that, from everything I'm hearing tonight, and all the posts on Facebook, my gosh, I was watching this convoy going, I want to go. I want to be there. It's really epic. But I do have to ask, did you have ice cream in Minnesota? This is a very important question.
Yes, we did. And in fact, our most active fellow in recovery that is usually the one running out and picking up parts, his name, we call him Squeaky. And he is just a hoot, and he's an incredible mechanic, and he knows everybody and gets stuff done. But he brings an ice cream freezer on the convoy with us. So once he gets stocked up, we have ice cream whenever we want it. From Squeaky.
I didn't even know to ask this question. I just know from our previous podcasts, leading up to the convoy time with Minnesota folks, and we brought up ice cream and of course Natchitoches meat pie. So food. I mean, were you guys well fed? The Highway Cafe. I know you guys went there. So yeah, food. Did you get sustenance? Sounds like you did.
Oh my gosh, we ate so well on this trip, and like I said, the majority of them were American Legion and VFW halls, and then the communities put on some amazing feeds. And what was really neat, we got into Mount Pleasant, Texas, and we overnighted there, and the community put on a dinner for us, and they brought in Chinese food. And
oh
you know
my
what?
gosh.
Everybody was raving about that. I never would have thought about that, but Mount Pleasant decided to do Chinese food. So it was a really nice change from, because most of our meals were meat and potatoes, good hearty meals. And we even got quite a few breakfasts and quite a few lunches along the way too.
Hey, well, it sounds like a good time. Now, did you have a Natchitoches meat pie while you were there?
Oh, you better believe it. You better believe I did.
Okay. And the Highway Cafe, did you get to taste the Jefferson Highway burger? I think, Roger, you got to be part of the debut of that.
Yeah, they didn't get to do that. It just came out then, but they did have I was there, and they did have they were really the folks there are great, and they were so excited to have the convoy stop there in near Veneta, Oklahoma. So
yeah, we certainly took over that parking lot. Sure did, and the one next to it.
Definitely did.
So the other thing too is I wanted to ask is I know that there are historic lodgings and all kinds of lodgings on the route, and one of the things that still blows my mind, I mean, you think about the Jefferson Highway being started in 1915 is, cars were just kind of being created at that time. This was a new thing. And then it's like, hey, y'all, we can do this. We can drive and let's go on a road trip kind of thing. And I don't even think they called it a road trip at that time, but we're going to go on this little adventure. And then they created these tourist camps. And we've been to the one.
Sociability runs.
The sociability runs. Yes, that's right. And off we go. And they're going to go camping. And I'm going, y'all, we're camping in Natchitoches, Louisiana. You're camping in Louisiana. I don't know if the mosquitoes were lower in that time. I'm not knocking you, Natchitoches, or any of Louisiana at all. But I was amazed, how many people were camping on the route back in those days. And so on this run, did any of you guys go camping?
Well, yeah, my wife and we slept in the back of our Deuce and a Half every night. 38 nights we were in the back of the Deuce and a Half.
Wow.
Natchitoches was our only hotel. We got 2 nights in the hotel there. The rest of the time, and probably 70% of our people camp in their vehicles. And
Wow.
I'm gonna lose my connection here. I've got about 3% left on my phone.
All right.
So.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much, Dan, for joining us, and for everybody that was on this convoy. It's epic, and you really did have yourself a good convoy. Thank you.
Yes, we did. And I'm going to add one more quick thing. Besides being the Palms to Pines Highway, we have also found out that it is Sugar Beets to Sugarcane Highway. So figure that one out.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. Everyone, you can learn more about the Military Vehicle Preservation Association. Go to MVPA.org, and of course, JeffersonHighway.org as always. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, Adeline, See, I just did it. Adeline for joining us.
It's the French pronunciation.
I went there. I was thinking World War II. Woo woo. Thank you so much for joining us. And Roger, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone take care. We'll be back next month. We've got lots more going on with the Jefferson Highway, so stay tuned. Keep up with us go to jeffersonhighway.org. Everything is there, and you can link to the podcast right from there. So thank you all. Take care, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on the Big Blend Radio Jefferson Highway Show. The show airs every fourth Thursday, and we encourage you to go to jeffersonhighway.org to learn more about the Jefferson Highway Association or even become a member. You can also dig into the history of the highway and share travel notes with friends at the Jefferson Highway Association Facebook group. Follow our shows at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels!